know the unthinkable has happened. This is the weekend following the premiere of the Justice League movie, and the Justice League movie has made under $100 million, and it's been the big talk online and everything like that because of it's a hero movie. It's all the DC comic main characters, the flagship characters: Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. Again, although we saw them in Batman v Superman. And Aquaman and Cyborg and the Flash and everybody else on screen. So they expected it to make upwards from 140, 150 million. Forget that one. Well, it did not. And there have been many speculations for the reasons why, and some of the reasons why is because of the changes that were made to the film and also the mandate, the very last minute mandate that was made by one of the heads of WB to say that the movie should be about 2 hours long. They didn't want it longer than that. So they wound up chopping a lot out of the film. A lot of the stuff that we saw in the trailers was cut out. And a lot of people already know that, and it's obvious, but here are a few of them. and as you see, there was quite a bit. So it leads us to believe that the story was completely different, and Zack Snyder probably had a very different vision of what the Justice League was supposed to be. And it was obvious certain things were made, like the tone was lightened and everything like that. We know that because when they redid the trailer after, Zack Snyder, after Josh Whedon came on to help Zack Snyder finish the film, because he was no longer able to finish it, we knew that it was going to have a little bit of a lighter tone because Josh Whedon, he has a little bit of a lighter tone, even though he has a dark side. And I always keep saying that. If you watch Buffy, for God's sakes, the body episode, just watch that. Anything. Dollhouse. Firefly, anything. He can do dark well. It's just that he did an Avengers movie, which was more on the light side, so that's what WB wanted. And that's what us as the fans, or the people who did not like Batman and Superman, wanted. And this is kind of my point of this video, because I wasn't even going to do one. Originally, I was supposed to do one prior to this video, weeks ago, about Thor Ragnarok, because I was one of the few people who wasn't crazy about Thor Ragnarok, because it went so far on that light side, and there were so many other elements of the movie that kind of annoyed me, that it took me out of the movie. It's not that I didn't think it was a horrible movie, and far from it. If like a 1 out of 10 scale, I'd give it like a 7.5. But there were things about that movie that just like made me go, hella, nothing to do with comic books, whatever. But people don't complain about that about Marvel sometimes. And that kind of gets on my nerves sometimes. But with DC, because of what happened with Batman v Superman, and even so Man of Steel, they wanted it to be lighter, and that's what they gave us. They gave us a lighter tone. And a lot of people are complaining about the continuity issues between Batman, Superman, and Justice League, when I think it's kind of contradictory, because those are the elements that you didn't like. The people who didn't like Batman and Superman, Batman vs Superman, there were many particular things that they didn't like, but a lot of the things that they didn't like were corrected in this movie. And yes, a lot of the things, timeline-wise, were ignored from Batman v Superman to have Justice League happen. But I thought that people would be happy about that because they no longer have to deal with that. The thing that they didn't like is gone. But I do full-heartedly believe that a lot of people didn't go to see the movie because of Batman vs Superman, because it looked like that movie. Wonder Woman, we could take that for example. Wonder Woman, of course, did very well and had the strongest hold of any superhero movie, any superhero origin movie to date. But it had a lot going against it. But the one thing that it did have going for it was that it didn't look like Batman v Superman. It had that darker tone, but Patty Jenkins knows how to do that darker tone with a bit of a lighter side. Even if you watch Monster, you could see it in there, especially the visuals. And the visuals are very similar in Wonder Woman, in my opinion. So, and Wonder Woman, obviously, she's an icon and everything like that. So is Batman, and so is Superman. But the fact that Justice League didn't even make as much as Batman Superman, but Batman Superman did very well, despite the fact that a lot of people hating it. And, well, a lot of people hating it, a lot of people liking it, but it was very divisive, a very divided opponent. So here are my things that I kind of pulled away from the movie that kind of just made me laugh, that people were like, oh God, why did they do this in the movie for Justice League? And one of the first ones I want to mention is Superman's return, which is the big thing that people have been talking about. in the comic book, as we know, because didn't even go back and do research to find out exactly what happened in the comic book again, because I used to love that comic book. I remember I was reading it every week when it came out, The Return of Superman and the Superman. Getting rid of the whole long story of the fourth Superman who replaced Superman before he was resurrected. One of the things that happened was that the Eradicator device, which is a Kryptonian preservation device, which would go to planets and change it into Krypton, basically. And Superman had a big battle with that prior to his death, like years prior. The Eradicator device was activated to get Superman's body, bring it back to the Fortress of Solitude, put it in a solar saturation chamber so that he would be able to absorb solar energy so that he would be able to regenerate. Because his body wasn't destroyed, it just took such a pounding that it needed to be regenerated. And that's how Superman returned. But key thing here is that when Superman did return, he returned in a Kryptonian battlesuit that wound up going straight towards Metropolis. And like Supergirl was the only one in Metropolis at the time. She was all worried, like, oh no, I'm going to get beat the crap out of, because this is what happened with Doomsday when she got beat the crap out of by Doomsday. With one punch, by the way. So he was in a battlesuit and he came out, and then he basically didn't have any power, but he was alive. And it took him a while to absorb solar energy, and he had a black costume in order to do that, because black, absorbs sunlight and blah, blah, blah. Stupid. But whatever. But people love that black suit, and people want to see that black suit. And Henry Cavill had, if you remember all these photos, he had hinted that the black suit was going to be in this movie. And we didn't get that because they completely decided to change it. And I even had a theory. When the trailer that they showed Alfred turning around and the slow motion thing where like somebody was walking towards him, and then Alfred said at the very end of that part of the trailer, "We were expecting you." I kept saying, well, I never said this on any of my videos, but it sounded like there were robotics in the background. Whoever was walking towards Alfred sounded like he had some type of robotics, like it's. And I thought that he might have actually be coming back in some type of a Kryptonian suit. Couldn't do the battle suit because they didn't really establish that in Man of Steel, but they did establish the fact that they did have suits that were full of metal and gear and everything like that. Jor-El, Zod, all the people from Krypton, when they're on Krypton in Man of Steel, they had these robotic type suits, but they weren't necessarily enhancing their powers or anything like that. But they're all kind of like battle suits. So I was assuming that that's how Superman may possibly come back, and they're going to pay homage to that. But it didn't happen. They changed it so that it related more to actually Man of Steel, where they said that the same chamber in Batman v Superman, the thing that people hated, the fact that they put him in the water and a little bit of blood and blah, 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 bring him back and everything like that. And despite the fact that people are like, oh my God, we got robbed and we can get the comic book story. Are you going to be able to do that whole comic book story with the Eradicator device and bring back everything in this damn movie? No. People outside of comic books would get confused. And I think that they actually did, the simple answer was to take what they did in Man of Steel and say that that's how they can resurrect him. And I didn't actually have a problem with that. I thought it was a simple answer, but it was a simple answer for the audience, for people who were not enthralled into the comic books. And so I thought that was a natural thing for them to do, and I didn't think that they did a bad job of that. It looked obviously like the scene was filmed afterwards because it was so light in comparison to scenes that came prior to it. And a lot of people are like, oh, we couldn't even see it was seamless. I thought it was kind of seamless, whatever Josh Whedon parts, because we don't know exactly what they were, and Zack Snyder's parts were in the movie. But there were parts that were visually lighter, like really lighter than prior scenes. And even though it looked like they took those prior scenes that were darker and they lightened them up, they still didn't match the light ones. But I just think that the people complaining about his resurrection, how it happened, why complain about that? Because we can't have exactly what happened in the comic books. We accept that every single Marvel movie out there. Civil War had nothing to do with Civil War. Winter Soldier, the only thing that had to do with Winter Soldier was the Winter Soldier was in the movie. And those two movies I love, by the way. Those are two of my top, some of my top comic book movies of all time. So that's my thing about the resurrection of Superman. And of course, the scene where Superman was fighting the Justice League, which that I knew was coming, but I didn't expect it was going to come the way that it did. Superman headbutting Wonder Woman. Thank God, I know Superman was taking out everybody, but I'm like, he can take out everybody, but Wonder Woman should give him more of a problem. And the fact that she got taken out at first, but then she still came to protect Bruce, basically, because Superman was going after Bruce. And the whole headbutting thing, it just made me laugh, and I can't believe they did it. And this was obviously a nod to all those people, all the fans who were mad about in Batman Superman how Superman was treated. And I'm the biggest Superman fan, but I had no problem with that. I thought that it was organic with the story for Batman v Superman. But a lot of people had a problem with the Superman part. And in this movie, they try to redeem that part by making him they showed his power. And that's something that we saw in Man of Steel, and I don't know why people are forgetting about that, but they showed how powerful Superman was, and they brought him back to the kind of the Christopher Reeve Superman. And but when he came back, he was evil, of course, because that's what happens when the apocalypse thing is involved, even though there was no mention of it. We're not going to go there. but the fact that at one point Superman was holding Aquaman, Cyborg, and Wonder Woman up because they were trying to attack him. And then it slows down and the Flash tries to make a move on Superman, and then he goes behind Superman, and Superman slowly turns around and sees him running that fast because he should be able to. And I knew it was coming, but yes, I thought they did a great job of that. And Superman still wound up catching him just with a shoulder and smacking him into the wall. And that was a great scene. I think almost everybody in the audience enjoyed it, because even when I went to see it, because I went to see it twice, each time everybody was, oh my God! And people were laughing and everything. The fact that Ezra Miller's face and his reaction to everything, that was classic, and they did a really good job of that. Characters in general. Like most people, I liked Ezra Miller as the Flash. I thought it was a little much, honestly. The jokes were a little much, but I feel that was another thing where they were trying to answer and they were trying to fix the problems that fans had before. And they wanted more comedy in these movies. Ezra Miller, perfect person to do it with. They didn't have, I swear if they had Hal Jordan in there, they'll probably get more comedy with him as well. But they decided to do it with the Flash. Even though Barry Allen is not as jokey, this is more of a Wally West Barry Allen version. Even though they're never going to say that, but Barry Allen in this movie seemed more like Wally West with his jokes. And I thought they were fine. I thought Ezra Miller did a pretty good job, but people seem to have gravitated towards Ezra Miller's interpretation of the Flash, and I'm glad that they have. I wasn't particularly blown away by it. I was like, okay, the humor was hitting, but it wasn't hitting with me. But I appreciate them trying to do that, and I was just answering all those people who were critiquing and everything like that. They wanted more humor. That was their answer for it. Somebody has to say that the opening scene for Justice League was great, with Wonder Woman actually stopping that bank robbery, which wound up being a mass, basically they were going to kill everybody. It wasn't even a bank robbery. They were just going to kill a whole bunch of people in city blocks with a bomb. But that was a scene that we've been waiting for so long, because we saw Wonder Woman in the past. What is she doing in the future, and how does that action compare up to? That was a great action scene for her. Even though you knew it was cut down, because in the trailer we saw her put her, we already saw that part at the end of the trailer where she actually put her bracelets together and did the boom. But this time you could tell that there was something more in that scene. I don't even think, I could be wrong. I saw this twice though. In the original trailer, she slid down on the floor and did this kick and knocked everybody off to the side. That wasn't in the movie. That was one of the things that was cut out. She grabbed somebody, she threw him off to the side, and the other guy took the back of a shotgun or whatever and knocked her in the head, and it didn't faze her, and then she knocked him out of the way. But she didn't actually do the slide on the floor with a kick and the hair whipping up. And that's another thing. I feel like it was kind of an answer to all those people who didn't like that part of Wonder Woman in the trailer. I had people complaining about her hair and everything like that, and I'm like, wow. But I did see it. It was kind of flat when she flipped her hair and she came up from that kick, and it wasn't even in the movie. But they condensed it down, and they did the things that were how can I put this, classic Wonder Woman, where she did the deflecting of the bullets with her bracelets, and she did it so fast, and that was perfect. You should show her speed and how accurate she was. And so the opening scene for me was great, and even like I said, when I was in the theater, people seemed to love that scene. Cyborg, A lot of people seem to like Cyborg too. Ray Fisher, I thought he did a really good job. He played the role well, and he shouldn't have played it like Teen Titans. Some people are like, oh, well, he wasn't funny and everything like that, but he wasn't funny. And can I just remind people of this? When he was in a Super Friend cartoon, he wasn't funny then. In the comic books, he wasn't that funny when he was in the actual Teen Titan comic book. It was just that cartoon, and I know that was a popular interpretation, but it was also interpretation that relied heavily on Japanese influences. And this is not what we're getting in a movie. I thought that they hinted and alluded to a lot of the things that happened to him and how he feels about being a cyborg in this movie very well, without giving away everything, which leads me into things like Aquaman. The same thing with him. We got to see a little bit a part of Atlantis, and we got to see Mirror in action, which I was like crazy. I'm like, finally we get to see Mirror in action, because I can't wait for that to happen in the actual Aquaman movie. But we got to see hints and everything like that. We didn't see Atlantis fully, we didn't see all that stuff, but that's supposed to be left over for the Aquaman movie. Like, what else are you gonna do? We can't like involve so much story heavy on each and every single character. It's just an introduction to them and making sure that you kind of care about them, and I think they did. Most everybody seems to agree with me on this part. They did the character interaction well. You got what the character was without having to see everything in their back history, and that is supposed to be led for these solo movies. And I'm glad that they did it that way. With Flash, just the brief thing with his parents, and we already know it from the Flash TV series anyway. But obviously they're going to make it a little bit different in the movie, and and every other thing that we already know about Batman, we already know about Superman. We know a lot about Wonder Woman already, but we don't know the history between World War I and up to the point where we are now. And that will most likely be explored in the second Wonder Woman movie, if we let it happen. But that's going to happen, but whatever. So that's what I think about most of all the characters in Justice League. They did a good job. And here goes the bad. Excuse me, pointing on. My bad. What I considered, not necessarily, I said it was more of the annoying factor. I like the fact that they took those notes and they decided to make it lighter. But for me, I missed the grittiness of Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel. I like the fact that DC is trying to cut out this universe, which is supposed to be more of a gritty, realistic comic book universe as far as visuals. And the fact that they had to backtrack and they had to make it light all over again, it kind of made me go, I was so happy when Batman the Animated Series came out and then Justice League came out after and the same people made it, because they kept that gritty quality, and it seems like that's what they're trying to do with the DCU movies. I'm not supposed to say DCU, whatever. DC Comic Book Universe movies. But the fact that they made it so light, like when I even got here, like when Superman he was the first scene in the movie, looking at his costume, I was going, oh, people are going to buy this? Oh my God. It was so... It wasn't the fact that it was, I shouldn't say it wasn't the fact that it was just bright. It was that you could see the problems with it. You could see the striation lines it's supposed to make up his muscle structure and everything like that. And it just seemed like it seemed like a costume from a Walmart. A Walmart Superman costume. And that kind of and it didn't even fit him that well in some scenes. But I accepted, I'm like, this is what they have to do. This is the thing that people complained about, it being too dark. So this is the way that they have to go. And that mandate of cutting it down to 2 hours, and I'm going to go there again, but that made it even worse. But it was hard to look at, but I got used to it. Because throughout the movie, we saw lighter things. We saw Batman in broad daylight. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, Batman's been in broad daylight a lot. But do you remember Dark Knight Rises? The whole battle scene with him and Bane took place in a brightly lit street. And that was a Nolan film. And nobody seems to remember that. And that worked, and you didn't question it that much. It was like Batman's out in daylight, that's perfectly fine. Oh, you can take a gun to shoot him. But it's just, he's in daylight. What else about this? The Soul Family and the Parademons. They were living on this nuclear plant thing. I don't even know. That scene, I didn't really have a problem with that. The fact that they focused on just a family. It looks like they tried to make it smaller. And I wanted to mention something, one of the reasons why they might have done this. When John Burns came on to the comic books to do Superman in 1987, when they redid the universe, kind of like before Flashpoint, there was Crisis on Infinite Earth that redid the universe for DC comic books. One of the mandates about Superman, other than he being a sole survivor of Krypton, which I wish they would keep, but they didn't, copyright reasons, was the fact that he said that Superman in the olden days would wait until the threat got to Metropolis. But his new Superman would it didn't make any sense to him. It's like, if Superman has all these powers and he has all these senses, he can see from miles away with his vision. He should see the threat from miles away and stop it before it gets to the city to cause destruction. And that's what I felt that they were doing with this Justice League movie. They could have waited to see if he would get to a major city, Steppenwolf, and cause all this mayhem and problems and chaos. But no, they went to the source. And the source was this place that just had one family. It wasn't as epic. It wasn't as huge. It wasn't as this big thing, because they went to the problem and they tried to get rid of it before it got big. That part I appreciated, and I think that that's what they were trying to do. And a lot of people are like, why are we focusing on this little family? Because they didn't want to make it that huge. Yes, it's supposed to be a Justice League movie, but they should be more effective in this. They should stop it at its root, and that's what they did. Apocalypse. Apocalypse was not, sorry with my camera, Apocalypse was not referenced that much. The mother box was, and Steppenwolf kept saying, Mother, you help me so much, whatever. That part was kind of, whatever. The fourth world thing, Jack Kirby's for fourth world, the new gods and Apocalypse and everything like that. He did make a reference by saying Darkseid. But we really didn't get to see anything about Apocalypse or New Genesis or anything like that. And I didn't think that we were going to in the first place. But some people were a little bit upset that they kind of abandoned what happened in Batman v Superman. I don't think they really did. They're not saying that Apocalypse does not exist. They just didn't want to explore that much of mythology in this movie. If you brought the fourth world into a Justice League movie where you're already introducing three other new characters and resurrecting Superman and fighting a new villain, I think that would kind of alienate people even more, because you're like, what, Apocalypse? Blah, blah, blah. Leave that for later. And hopefully they do bring it back, even though the teaser trailers at the end indicate that they won't do that for the next movie, but leave it for something down the line, because I know people are saying the fact that it's going to kind of look like Thanos anyhow if they brought Darkseid in. Well, I hope people get over that, because Darkseid came first. Thanos was created as a means of Marvel comic books having their own type of a Darkseid. So there you go. And they even made Thanos bigger. Thanos used to be a little bit scrawnier, and then they said he needs to be more threatening like Darkseid, so they made him bigger. I know that whatever happens in the movies, people think if it happens in the movie first, that's how it's supposed to go. Like if Marvel did this first, even though technically it wasn't done in the comic books first, then it was done first by Marvel. But it's just sad that people can't go away from that, just because somebody did one thing. There are so many similarities between Marvel and DC. It's not funny, but that's just the way the comic books go. But Steppenwolf himself, by the way, I basically had the same problem everybody else did. A lot of CGI Steppenwolf. They didn't really need that. They could have done a practical effect. It could have been just him in a suit. But I didn't really have a problem overall. I think that he moved okay. It's just his face kind of looked like it looked like a video game. But the voice was great, obviously, from I can't remember his name, but he was in Game of Thrones before, and he's been in so many movies and so many. He's a great actor. He's a great voice actor. He did a good job of what he had to do for Steppenwolf. I already said about all those deleted scenes and everything like that. We already know that those aren't going to be in the film, and it was fine. Depowered Wonder Woman. I heard a lot of comments online that she was depowered and everything like that, especially when she was fighting Steppenwolf. Not the case. She held her own with Steppenwolf, but they made Steppenwolf a little bit stronger because he was taking out Aquaman and her at the same time. But I always point to the fact, this on Earth 1. In this picture, you can see that, Earth 2. And this was after the 52 had premiered and everything like that, and they had a book called Earth 2. And in that world, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman died fighting the forces of Apocalypse that were basically attacking Earth for a year. Steppenwolf stabbed Wonder Woman and killed her. Granted, I think that it was kind of like a sucker punch thing because he came up behind her and stabbed her while she was fighting a homeless parademons. So I don't think that he would have that. It would be so easy for him to do head on with her, one on one. But he did kill her. He did kill Wonder Woman. Love Wonder Woman to death, but the forces of Apocalypse are incredibly strong. And if you watch the Superman animated, the WB animated movie, Batman, Superman, Apocalypse, you'll see that. Wonder Woman goes up against the female Furies, and those are just a group of females from Apocalypse, warriors, and she does a really good job against them, but they're almost on par with Wonder Woman. So to say that Steppenwolf shouldn't be that much on par with Wonder Woman, I believe is wrong. And I don't believe that Wonder Woman was depowered. She was in another league. She was in her own league this time. So all in all, I did like the Justice League movie because I went into it thinking that they wanted to correct a lot of the things that happened, but then they also had the mandate of making it like 2 hours long. And I think that it was a good step for the DC comic book universe. And despite the fact that I didn't like the bright part, but I knew that they had to do it, I knew that they would figure out how to tone that just right. It's just upsetting that it didn't make as much money. I mean, this weekend's coming up, Thanksgiving weekend, and they say it might make even less money because there's always a drop-off for comic book movies. But they're saying that it might be in the 60s in the drop-off, 50, 60%. Hopefully it is not that. Hopefully word of mouth, which isn't that great. it seems to be half and half. People seem to like the characters, but they see all the flaws in the stories. And, Henry Cavill's mustache. I didn't want to go into that because I think it's stupid. Flat out, just to say one quick thing about Henry Cavill's mustache and the fact that if you don't know, for Mission Impossible 4, 5, 6, whatever the hell the next movie's supposed to be, they said that they can't have him remove his mustache because he's supposed to have that in the movie, and he was already signed on from the movie. So the people who were doing Justice League decided to digitally get rid of it and take the brunt of that. And they spent all this money to reshoot all these scenes with Henry Cavill and get rid of the mustache and everything like that. And I didn't think it was bad. It was a noticeable part where like his face looked a little bit different, but it wasn't bad at all. I really do believe that because people knew that and they heard about it, they were looking for it. And when you're looking for something that much, you actually make it appear even more. And I just don't think it was that bad at all. And I'm a big person about special effects too. And I thought that it was fine. I just think that people were reading so much into it and they wanted to see it. They wanted to see it. And I thought they did the best job they could have done with that. And the visual effects for the movie was fine all in all. I mean, it was really, really special effects heavy, being the fact that it basically on green screen throughout the whole like last third of the movie. But that's a Zack Snyder thing. And I believe that that's what they would want to get rid of in any future Justice League movies, if they do one. Hopefully they do. But in most DC comic book movies, I think they're trying to gear towards more practical as far as like environments and stuff like that. But CG's not going away, and that's just the way it is. It'll either be good or it'll be bad. But my rating for the movie itself, I would put it at, I was going to say 7.5, just like Thor Ragnarok, just because of the fact that I didn't want it to be as bright, but I knew it was going to be. But I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I'm a big fan of the Justice League, and I'm just finally glad that it was on screen. And it may not be the exact way that I wanted it to, but they also added those 2 end credit sequences, which I loved. And hopefully, despite the fact that the movie didn't make as much as they wanted it to make, that this will not deter Warner Brothers from making future ones and steering with what they started, steering towards that direction and keeping it. And they listened to the fans and they try to satisfy the fans, and it didn't quite work, but they tried. And I just hopefully people just won't always make those comparisons. Oh, it's not a Marvel movie. It's just don't think that way. It's just a comic book movie, and everything doesn't have to be Marvel. So that is my review of Justice League, the movie. And if you want to check out my online comic book, I always have to plug this at the end. It's Visions of the New, visionsofthenew.com. You can download the PDF, or you can read it online. You can even read it on Kindle and Nook. It's on there. Haven't touched it in a while, but I will be putting more things on there, and I keep saying that because I'm waiting. getting so many issues done so that I can release them in a timely manner. But if you want to check out the website, just go to the website. And until next time.